I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello, this is Christine Barton. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barton. Today, we're going to be talking about Anthony Mackie, who was, just started as Captain America in the Brave New World movie, which I didn't see. My sister saw, and there's a lot of issues with the film, but there are people who liked it. It's not one of Marvel's best, but Marvel's been in a slump. But Anthony Mackie had made some other comments in interviews that really upset people. And I kind of stuck up for Anthony Mackie because I thought he didn't say things in the best way, but just based on other comments that he's made in the past, I'm like, he seems like he's kind of more traditional. And so today, I saw a clip from a podcast that he was on. He was talking about masculinity in America being attacked. And so I just wanted to look at that. He also said some other comments that some folks didn't like about success, but and whether you are rewarded for working hard and stuff. And I think there's a lot of nuance to look at with that conversation, what he had on the podcast. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about Mr. McBride, Representative McBride. I know we talked about that yesterday, but he did clap back on Republicans and is trying to make it seem like they're the weird ones for focusing on the culture war stuff. And the issue is, of course, they were taking over, trying to reshape our society, and we are pushing back. And now we're the bad people for pushing back on this war that they started waging. So I want to talk about that. And if we have time, I also want to talk about Tomi Lauren's comments. I think I touched on them yesterday too, but there was a video from her podcast that she had, shared a clip of it, a little snippet. So I wanted to address that. So before we jump into everything, I want to just first of all say hello to everybody who's watching, everyone in the chat who'll be watching on Facebook and YouTube. And I know the Facebook and YouTube people can't talk to each other, but I see all your comments coming through. So thank you for those who watch live and to those of you who watch back. But you guys can go to the website, look at more content, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, I do encourage you to please leave a donation on the website. Because it does cost to stream and run my site, all that good stuff. So you guys can support. I appreciate it. You guys can also check out different merchants available at blacktnews.com, like different merchandise that we have available on the website that you might like. And I encourage you guys to check out some of my books that I have. I have a link in the description. It'll take you to an Amazon page with my stuff on it. And I have historical fiction, contemporary fantasy. I have children's chapter books. March is Read Month. Might want a nice wholesome book for your kiddos to read or your grandkids and whatnot. So go ahead and check out my stuff and appreciate those of you who have. So first thing, I just want to note that the Democrats, this isn't a main story, but I just want to mention it, are saying that they're going to vote no on the CR and are ready for shutdown. Fetterman thinks that's a bad idea, but Chuck Schumer, I guess, wants to do that and own that, and doesn't have a great alternative. I guess his alternative was to just do a clean CR for like a month and I guess hope things aren't really fixed by then and everything kind of collapses, because there is some instability with the economy with how much Trump's talking about tariffs and other things. But they, in the past, they've always talked about shutdowns are bad. And Of course, when it's the other team and you don't want to play ball, then it's okay. That's just how the government works. So we'll see how that proceeds, or if any deals or whatnot can be made. But apparently, I see this tweet from someone that says Gillibrand is screaming so loud that we can hear it through the thick wood doors. There's just a lot of nonsense in Congress. So we'll watch that situation and see if they decide to fund the government or not. We shall see. But then if it does get shut down, then the executive branch gets to dictate who are the essential workers. So if Trump just puts Elon on the job, they might be like, we're not ever opening this thing back up. So they'll have to open it up at some time. But yeah, just do your job, guys. Just do your job. So anyway, let's start off with Anthony Mackie. So Anthony Mackie had made some comments while he was abroad, pushing his film, promoting his film, Captain America, that folks didn't like. And I didn't really like the comments either, but I did stick up for Mackie because I'm like, I know that he has some more traditional views. And so I just thought maybe we should give him a bit of grace. So that was my 2 cents about it. And then he made some other comments that I thought were better, that when he was like cleaning it up, and some people were like, nah, he's just walking it back because he shouldn't have said what he said in the first, like, he shouldn't have said what he said in the first place. But I don't think his sentiment is that like America sucks, I hate America, or something like that. Everybody can have some issues with the country or where the directions and other things like that, but he just doesn't, I don't know, seem like that kind of guy. So anyway, like I said, he's very traditional. He was on this podcast and he was talking about masculinity and that they're killing it in our communities, and I think that's a true thing. It's a real thing. And he talked about how he tries to raise his boys kind of more old fashioned and respectful, and to raise them to not have big heads and other things like that. So I think there's some good lessons here from Anthony Mackie, who I guess a lot of people know him from 8 Mile. I've never actually seen 8 Mile, but of course I know him from the Marvel franchise films. He had a role in Real Steel. I really like that movie. It's a smaller role, but he was in it. He was an Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and lots of things. He was in The Banker. That was a really good movie. He was the lead in that film. So he's been a lot of stuff. He's been around in the industry for 24 years. So just go ahead and just see what he had to say.
I keep my boys humble. Like, my boys have never had a pair of Jordans. My boys don't do all that internet fly shit. I'm like, your kids. And no, I could be the biggest star in the world. Do not let me catch you being stupid. Mm-hmm. Do not. And my oldest gets it. My 15-year-old, he tells the other ones, he's like, yo, don't make dad mad. Because once you get one that's right, he's going to straighten the other ones out. Mm-hmm. So it's just that thing of, in the past 20 years, we've been living through the death of the American male. They have literally killed masculinity in our homes and our communities for one reason or another. But I raised my boys to be young men. And however you feel about that, you feel about that. Right. But my boys will always be respectful. They will always say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. No, sir, no, ma'am. They will always say thank you. They will always open the door for a lady. They will always make sure that their mother is taken care and provided for. They will always be men. And that's always, since they were 2 years old. Every time I left for a job, I tell my 15-year-old, you're the man of the house. You make sure these doors are locked every night. This alarm is on. You text me or you call me every night before you go to bed and you wake up.
I love that.
Because we're men. If I'm not there to protect, he got to be there to protect. Because you can have all the money in the world, climb through the window, that money means nothing. Right. You can have all the celebrity in the world, jump through the door, that celebrity means nothing. Yeah. So you got to have a little guard in there, And so for me, it's always that idea of American masculinity is very different.
Yeah. So he had also talked about how when you go to Europe, it just kind of feels different. Like kind of the view of like, I don't know, maybe the sort of aggressive protector role as far as the masculinity goes. And he also talked about how for whatever reason it's just come under attack as well. So I when I had said before, I'm like, he seems to like to have more traditional sort of views on like men and women. Like he was on one talk show and he said, you know, things about you want me to open the door for you, don't you? Like you want me to take out the trash for you. And if some dude is talking, you know, smack about you, you expect me to go and knock them out for you or whatever. He's like, so you can make me a sandwich. You know? So I like that he teaches his boys to be respectful, have manners, to be chivalrous. What he's talking about, you know, chivalry, and instilling within them that to be masculine is to protect women. It is to protect the family. It is to take on that role of being the guardian. And that's what needs to be instilled within people. There's folks who've been like promoting guys like Andrew Tate, even on the right, there's wackadoodles doing it. I think it's disgusting. And I know like earlier before people were talking about Andrew Tate lifting him up or whatever, he was saying a bunch of things about COVID that folks agreed with and so on. But there's a lot of details that we know now that we didn't know before. Milk Bar TV, if you're unfamiliar with them on X, have posted a lot of receipts with their court cases and just clips of him going on different podcasts and talking about how he's made his money, what he thinks about women, and so on. And What Do You Meme did a video, and you can find it on YouTube. And he's like, I didn't want to do another video on Andrew Tate, but I saw he saw some program where there's all these young boys and they're asking them about Andrew Tate, and they're showing all this data about how many boys have heard of Andrew Tate, and they look up them with the cars and money and all that kind of stuff. And so gosh, I hope all that's not true and that's just their perception of some things. But he did make the rounds on different podcasts, and there's very popular podcasts that keep pushing him or whatever. So maybe that's the case and they're unaware of his filthy, disgusting, and degenerate sort of ways. But he does like eke out that stuff when he talks anyway. So it's just a really bad time. So he did a video addressing Andrew Tate, and I Anthony Mackie and the things that he's instilling within his boys, like those are things that we should uplift and look at and say that's masculinity, not just having, you know, cars and money and just working out or whatever. Like what are you using your strength for? What are you using your intelligence for? What are you using your power for? Are you using your power to protect someone else, to raise up someone else, to instill within them? Andrew Tate thinks you should just be able to, you know, drop seeds in women, and your sons and your bastard children everywhere should just be like, oh, my dad's a great person. I didn't need him to raise me. Like I'm okay with a couple hours every few months or something, if even that. We should just be okay that he's somewhere out the world being great. And that is not how children function. And that was part of What Do You Meme's video, which he also touched on with Elon Musk as well in another video that he did, and dropped a lot of data on how, you know, children are informed by spending time with their parents and the effects of fatherless homes. And a lot of those effects with fatherless homes, it doesn't mean that people have no relationship with their father. It just means that they don't live in the homes with them. And it can still have a major impact on their development. So now I don't really think people, I know people like see celebrities and there's things that they like about them and they usually will uplift them or whatever. I think I have more kind of cynical worldview. And I'm like, I don't think people should have heroes. Like there's attributes or whatever you can like on this person or that person and uplift them a bit. But like just to be like, yeah, that's my hero. They're going to eventually disappoint you So just keep a healthy perspective on this stuff. So I'm not saying like everybody should go out and make Anthony Mackie your hero or whatever, but those are the sort of values that we should be uplifting, instilling in our children, and the view that masculinity is you have to be strong for those around you so you can protect them, because that is your role as a man. Your role is to protect. That's what we need to be instilling in our men. That. So I like that. I think that's great with Anthony Mackie. And he is correct. He didn't say it so much in that clip, but he did talk about it in the podcast how masculinity is being attacked for whatever reason, and that's true. And I don't know how much he's thought about like the different political reasons as to why. But it is an issue, and it's had a very negative effect on our world, and I think particularly on the Black community, but I think he's doing his part there. Now there's a someone said, excuse my language, but Andrew is a pimp. I don't I don't think that word is too harsh, but yeah, Andrew Tate is a pimp. And as like there's this girl, I don't want to play like the clip of him like beating her because I don't know, I don't want to get flagged. There's some things I like to share on like TikTok or something to get it around so people know, but I'm like, so many things involving him will just get taken down. But there's this girl named Vivian, and there's a video of him beating her with a belt. And so Vivian's come out like, no, that was just sexual foreplay. It was consensual. Okay, but Vivian was 15 in there. So if you want to stick up for Tate and says that was totally consensual, and you think a 15-year-old can consent to an adult beating them with a belt for sexual gratification, I guess you go ahead and make that pitch. But Tate has also talked about how Vivian is his bottom B, and how he used her to go get other girls and convince them into doing the cam business stuff. And Andrew Tate has talked about how he can make women fall in love with him. He uses sex as a tool. Not that he even really enjoys it, but it's a power move to get the women to fall in love with him. And he uses them. He's talked about how he looks up to James Bond because James Bond just uses women as tools. And and that's how he sees women, just as things to acquire more money and power. So if I had my choice for folks to look up to, I'd rather they look up to Captain America. And I don't care that you don't like him because he's not Steve Rogers. I promise you, I don't know all of Anthony Mackie's politics, but he's way more conservative than Chris Evans. Abel said Andrew Tate doesn't have a chin. He doesn't. I mean, some of the art with people mocking Andrew Tate's pretty funny about him being chinless, but he's just really gross. So I've had to pick on like who has a better message. There's Anthony Mackie, and there's so many guys like him out there. I don't necessarily think people should be looking so much to the celebrities. Like you probably have a local pastor that's worth looking up to, a coach or somebody, just some kind of figure of masculinity to help draw different values from. I think there's obviously dangers when you're looking to strangers for all that stuff. But even so, like some people will say that people look at Andrew Tate because there's no figures or whatever, like in the conservative sphere or to really look up to. Like there are, it's just what sort of values are you drawing from and pulling out of that you think is worth instilling in folks? I know when people think like who's the highlight of masculinity, people don't think, the team from the Daily Wire or something, but there's values in them that they instill that are worth looking up to rather than at someone like Andrew Tate. So masculinity is supposed to be used to protect, to take care of your family. That's how God intended it. So if you do the opposite of that, you're just a degenerate that's helping to devolve your community, your nation. And I don't know, people like that need to be horsewhipped, in my opinion. But anyway, there's something else that Anthony Mackie said that some folks don't like. So I want to touch on that. I saw Gerald from Steven Crowder show thought this is the dumbest thing he's ever heard, and this will actually hurt the Black community. So he doesn't like what Anthony says in this clip, but I think there's some nuance to it here.
I've been in the business 24 years, right? And I've seen people go from nothing to the biggest stars in the world. I've seen people go from one role to winning Academy Awards and doing all this shit. And what I realized yesterday thinking about it, we're lying to our kids, dog. And I think that's a big problem in our community. We tell our kids that and this is fresh on my heart. Like I literally just came to this conclusion last night. We tell our kids if they do right and they make the good grades and they go to the programs and they will become successful. If you work hard enough, your work will be paid off. And that's not true. Success is given. It's not earned. Because you can be the most brilliant. If one person don't tap you, each one of y'all, there were people who could hit harder, who could catch better, who could run faster, but somebody said, you're the one. And the other 50 behind you fell off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And because of that, I don't know what that emotion or that feeling is the scary thing. Because I went to all the programs. I've done Broadway. I've done off-Broadway. I've been in the business 24 years. I've been in 2 Academy Award films. I've done independent films. I've done major motion pictures. Now I'm Captain America. So now what?
Hold up.
So this is where I think there's a lot of nuance to be said. But first I'll start off with what I kind of disagree with. He got to where he is and is now Captain America because he said he's been working for 24 years. He obviously put in some hard work, and he obviously had, an education to build him to get to that place. So at the same time, I'm sure he's seen people who just kind of came and got a lucky break, and they got a chance, an opportunity that other people had, then they've been busting their butts. I mean, you guys have heard so many stories of people go to Hollywood or whatever with all these dreams. Maybe they're really talented or something, but they never get too far and they have to leave or whatever. There's so many factors that can go into somebody being a star. You have the right look, you got the right agent. I saw a lot of Christians who were responding to this like no, he's talking about the favor of God. So you got to have the favor of the Lord. That's the thing that makes people tap you, is the favor of God, and the favor ain't always fair. That kind of rhetoric. You can definitely earn your success, and I don't think Mackie would necessarily say that he didn't earn the success that he's had. Maybe he feels like with all the work he's put into it, he should have more success. But I think he's at least earned the portion that he has. But is it true that you can work hard and your hard work won't pay off? I think it's always going to give you some measure of success, but are you going to be able to achieve all of your dreams? Probably not. Mark Rowe, who's like the jobs guy, he teaches, I think it is, but he had a great, I think it was a PragerU video, but he talked about how people shouldn't just kind of follow their dreams. They should follow opportunity, because there's different things that you might want to do, but a door might not be open for you, but there's a window out there that's going to lead you to an opportunity to make more out of life. It's not Mark Rowe. Someone's got to know who I'm talking about. Maybe is it Mike Rowe? I think so. I think it's Mike Rowe. Is it Mike? Yes, Mike. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you in the comments. Thank you very much. So the path that you may set for yourself may not be the one that you can actually achieve, or the achievements that you make may not get you to where you want to be. Like to me, growing up in my academic career, I wanted to be the top of my class, work really hard to be number one, to be valedictorian. That's what I wanted when I was a kid. I, was at my sister's graduation. She graduated in 2000, and someone was speaking, giving a speech, and I was like, "Why is they speaking?" And my dad's like, "They're valedictorian." I'm like, "Well, how do you become the valedictorian?" And he's like, "You have to get like all A's all the time." I was like, "That's all you have to do?" And so he was tickled by that. And so I'm like, "I want to be valedictorian." So I just kept working really, really, really hard. But I had in A minus in the 9th grade in science, and then I had a B plus in like algebra 2 in the 10th grade, and that was my only B, but it wasn't enough to get me valedictorian, obviously. So I had to reassess my goals, and I was trying to reach a star. And so I had to hit the moon instead. And so I'm like, okay, my new goal is to at least be in the top 10. And so, I think when I got that A minus, that's when I was like, I gotta reassess because I'm not gonna be valedictorian. And because I remember when I got that B plus, I was really, really upset. And my dad was just like it's okay if you don't get that. Like it's whatever. And I was like, how dare you? You are like off the team. You are off the team. Like, how dare you not be on like the mission? Like this has to be completed. And I remember my oldest sister Gina, she like came over me and she just like prayed with me. She's like, "Lord, you see the desire of her heart. This is what she really wants to do. Like help her be able to make it into the top 10 or whatever." So I ended up being number 9 when I graduated. And so I was really proud of that like achievement. And I remember one day, years later, I was working at Micro Center and I mentioned it, and someone was like, and we're still working at the same job together. And that just like oh gosh, it's humbling. And you may not always get to where exactly you think you're gonna be or whatever. So my goals in life shifted and changed a lot at that time. I wouldn't have thought I'd be like influencer talking about politics. I wouldn't have imagined working at the Michigan Republican Party or all the things I've done or have got to do or whatnot. Like when I was a kid, I didn't even like the idea of like really writing like a book or anything like that. I thought I'd only be able to write like, I don't know, church stuff, and I thought that'd be boring. And then I start writing novels, fiction novels, and then I started like writing fiction books, like nonfiction books, and put a lot of passion and heart into them. So you just never know how your life is kind of gonna go. So you have to be willing to reevaluate and change that path. So you can find success, but you're not gonna find the level that maybe you dream about as a kid, and especially maybe not in that initial field where you dreamed about landing in the first place, if that makes sense. But to Anthony's point about success is given, a lot of times that can be true. Like when I worked at Target, they did not like to make managers out of people who did not have college degrees, but they were willing to make managers out of people who had no experience, but they had college degrees. And that drove me crazy. I didn't want to be a manager at Target. I didn't want to work there really, but I did work very hard at the time when I did. But I had two other sisters who worked there, and the one under me, Sabrina, she worked very hard, and she was trying to be a manager, like in the soft lines, like she was really like over shoes and other stuff like that. But she was and she was over her department with shoes, but they just would not promote her because she didn't have a college degree. But they would bring in someone else with no experience, but they graduated from college. And one girl, she was beautiful, but she was nothing was there, like inside in the mind. And she got my name wrong all the time. She confused me with this other black girl, and we looked nothing alike. We were just like heavy on top black girls, and she wore glasses. I didn't like she confused me all the time and called me the wrong name like every day. And I don't think she was doing it on purpose. She was beautiful, but she was so ditzy and had no experience to have the job that she had. And there are instances where my sister, who had all this experience, would have to come in and train people to be over her. And it was frustrating. So like life is not always fair. And they decide, we'll give success here instead of rewarding people who have earned it. That's just really a part of life. But in those situations where people do not value you and will not reward you according to your works, you go somewhere else, hopefully where you are appreciated. And sometimes you have to build up your own thing from the ground up, and you can find much success that way. Or sometimes it fails. You fail flat on your face. But there are times when, if we go back to the acting, Alan Rickman, his first film was Die Hard. His first film was Die Hard. So that's pretty incredible. A lot of people have to do all these side things, and they work really hard, and one day they'll get kind of a leading role. And his first one was this iconic film. He was obviously an incredible actor, and his American accent obviously wasn't great when he did that one scene when they like caught him and he's like, oh no, and he tried to be an American. It was just awful. But very talented, beloved actor. But he just busted on the scene. So there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about how there's time and chance for us all. And I think that is true. I think favor, you could have like a godly sort of favor, but a lot of times people give you the job whether or not they like you, whether you're going to click, whether they think you're good for the role, and it's not always going to be about how much hard work you put in. Like life is really complex. So as far as what Anthony Mackie should teach his sons, I think he teaches his sons good lessons, and he keeps them humble. But I think he should, and probably does, encourage them to work really hard. But life is not a formula of you just work hard and you're going to achieve all the things that you want. There's all these detours and you get knocked down. Really, the thing that I thought about when I saw this video, how many Cobra Kai fans we got out there. If you haven't seen it, Cobra Kai is a huge Netflix success that you start out on YouTube Red, but it's a continuation of the Karate Kid. And so Johnny Lawrence, who was defeated by Daniel, the main character who was a Karate Kid in the first film, it's about his life and how his life pretty much went downhill after that kick in the face, and him like trying to get his life together. And so he restarts, the gym that he was a part of, Cobra Kai. He there's this kid, Miguel, in the neighborhood he takes in, starts teaching him karate. And Johnny has a son that he's estranged with, and who ends up being trained by Daniel. And the finale ends up being, the final fight is Johnny's son versus Miguel. And so there's a lot of different things that happen. And eventually Daniel and Johnny, join forces, and and kind of unite their ways. They bump heads a lot, but it has a very satisfying conclusion. Like, a lot of it is nonsense. It's just, some of it is turn your brain off kind of fun with Cobra Kai. Not everything you like has to be like a masterpiece as far as art goes, but they stuck the landing. They stuck the landing with the show. But the final fight, there was like this world karate tournament. And I promise you this will all make sense. And there's a reason why I'm explaining all this stuff. There was this worldwide karate tournament for, minors or whatever. So we're teenagers. So Miguel ends up in the final fight with this guy named Axel. And so their kind of Cobra Kai at this point is going to be the underdogs and in the battle, because the people that the other team they're fighting with are really, really talented, and Axel's like like he's tall, he's big, he's just a machine. So but Miguel just has this attitude of, I'm going to win, I'm going to defeat this guy, and I'm going to make up the points that we need to win. And so in the first round, Miguel, he's just focused, he's getting his hits in, he's very methodical, and he's making up the points and stuff. And in the round 2, Axel just comes back and he makes another gap with the points. And so when they do timeout, Miguel talks to Johnny. He's like, I'm sorry, sensei. Like, I thought I had him. And Johnny said, well, you did have him, and then he had you. He's like, that's how life is. One moment you're up and one moment you're down. And he's like, well, I don't know if I can make up the points. He said, just forget about the points. He's like, you've had so many ups and downs, and you fought, and no one comes back like you. He said, so just like forget the points. Don't even think about them. Just go in there and give them the best, couple minutes of karate possible with everything that you've learned. And so he goes out there and he fights Axel, and they're like flashbacking to different things throughout the series that he's learned in different fights, and he's like doing those same moves on Axel. So it's completely full circle with him. It's full circle with a lot of characters, but totally full circle with Miguel, and he ends up winning. And so why I thought about that when I listened to Anthony Mackie is that you're not guaranteed success. You're gonna be up, and you're gonna win. I thought I had him, and then there's gonna be other times when life's got you. When life's got you, that's just a fact. But you just have to do your best, and you have to fight hard, and you have to give it your all. And maybe you're gonna end up as a champion, like he got to end up as a champion. But in Robbie, at first, he was fighting Axel, and was fighting very methodical, and it seemed like he was going to win, and they fought dirty. It actually like broke his leg to get him out of it. And he's like always number 2. Like, he finished second in the first season, and I'm like, and you finished second in another season. I'm like, I just want him to have a win. And so when he's like in the locker room with his leg all messed up, he's talking to his dad, and he's like, I could have won. He's like, it's too bad the world won't ever know. He's like, but I know it. And so he says within himself, well, he says to his dad, but he's like, I may not be the world champion, but there's so many things in my life, like my relationship with my dad, my friends, my girlfriend, like it's brought me all these positive things. So that, to me, that's enough to be a champion. And so he never got his goal there. He didn't get to be number 1 like he wanted, but that doesn't mean that he isn't fulfilled in other ways, even though he didn't quite meet that marker for success. So you have to prepare your kids to handle failure, not to fail necessarily, but to be able to handle failure and regroup and have perspective about what they have achieved while trying to hit success. So I don't totally agree with what Mackie said, and he said he just thought about it the night before. So maybe It's not like the most properly fleshed out idea, but it is true that sometimes success is given, and it's not necessarily always earned, but it is important to try to earn it and work hard. And I don't think he's gonna have the message of don't teach your kids to work hard, it won't pay off. But but you do have to remember that a lot of times it is about opportunity, and a lot of people in Hollywood know that too. Like, you can work really hard, but there's certain people who are like producers and executives and stuff who are holding the keys, and you have to hobnob with a lot of folks, and they have to say yes or things will not happen for you. And the only way to not have to capitulate to all these kinds of different people is if you totally go and start your whole thing and you produce everything, you know? And that's not easy to do. So you do have to depend on a lot of people's yeses. You just do. Um that's just how it works. So anyway, yeah, I don't think it's the dumbest thing, as Gerald said. Um I just think it's a more nuanced conversation than maybe Mackie was able to articulate in that moment, but not definitely not the dumbest thing he's ever heard. I haven't watched Steven Crowder's show in a while, but I'm sure they've covered things that are way dumber than that. Speaking of things that are way dumber, um, let's talk about this Mr. McBride situation once again. So know we touched on it. I don't want to obsess about it or anything, but there was a clip of him talking about it. So if you're unaware, um, Mr. McBride was, or Representative McBride was on a panel, um, congressional panel with Representative Self and Representative Keaton. Keaton is a Democrat. And so Representative Self was a Republican. He introduced McBride and he said, Representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride. And so McBride didn't make a big fuss. McBride just said, thank you, Madam Chair. So Keaton loses his mind and starts pushing back. He's like, what did you just say? How did you just address? Like, I thought you had decency. I thought you were a decent person. I knew you, but I thought you were decent. And so he's just like, this is the standard that's set. And he's like, well, what's the standard? What's the standard? He's like, if you don't address them correctly, the representative correctly, then I'm not going to continue. And then he's just like, meeting adjourned. And so Representative Self did go on Michael Knowles' show, and I did watch it. Yesterday I hadn't watched it. But I did watch it I think earlier today. Or it was late last night. And so he said that when McBride was initially introduced into Congress, for the record or whatever, he was introduced as Mr. And he said no one made a fuss, or he didn't make a fuss then. And I guess people did try to alter the record, and that was, I guess, defeated when people tried to alter the record. But he was referred to as Mr., and that's how people are going to address him. Or at least, I guess, many Republicans are going to address him. And that's the precedent that has been set. I don't think that's necessarily a great argument. Like, you could go with that, but I think it's just like, well, he is a man, so we're just going to address him as a man. So I think it could just really be that simple. But he argued that the precedent had already been set. So that's what he was referring to about how the House already laid whatever ground rules or whatever. So I think it's interesting. I mentioned this yesterday, that Keating was furious that Self correctly called McBride Mr., but didn't say a peep about McBride calling Self Madam. No one had anything to say about that. So there's a couple of people on the right, or fancy themselves to be people on the right, who thought it was not appropriate or kind of mean to use Mr. And I'm going to first play McBride's reaction to this stuff, before I get into some folks on the right.
We will not take a lecture on decorum from a party that incited an insurrection. I appear to live rent-free.
Okay, first of all, I know McBride lives in a world where things aren't true, but incitement has very specific standards, and you can keep saying that they incited an insurrection or whatever. It does not meet those standards. If it did, if anyone did, they probably should be in jail. Maybe they'd be pardoned by now. Who knows? But they should be in jail. And so, no, they didn't incite an insurrection. There's a very specific sort of definition, and that was not met. It just wasn't.
In the minds of some of my Republican colleagues, I wish that they would spend even a
yeah, and they're talking about inciting an insurrection. Like, we will not listen to the court. First of all, your party just acted a fool at the joint address. So there's a lot about decorum y'all folks don't understand. So y'all didn't have decorum then. And y'all didn't have much to say when BLM was going around attacking federal property. They weren't just burning down, different, restaurants or robbing not convenience stores, but they were doing like mob stuff there, robbing cheesecake factories, robbing Targets, all kinds of different other stores. They didn't want to touch the Waffle House, though. There's one video, they're like, no, we can't do the Waffle House. Like, keep going, not the Waffle House. They just moved on. They were times ignoring that, or at least cheering it on and just calling it peaceful protests and all kinds of different stuff. So let's just like, I was disappointed with January 6th. I'm like, oh gosh, this is so annoying. Like, why you guys fall for this trap? Why'd you it was just bad behavior or whatever. So let's just say there's bad behavior on both sides, and you are responsible for your own personal behavior. And at the very least, you still called that dude madam. So you are still responsible for how you chose to behave. He was being honest and you were being petty. So you're not good on this decorum situation either. Let me roll it back a little bit.
That they would spend even a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, thinking about how to lower the costs for American families. I wish they would spend a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, figuring out how to make government actually work better, rather than making it work worse in order to prove that government can't work. They are obsessed with culture war issues. The Republican Party is obsessed with culture war issues. It is weird and it is bizarre. And the American people deserve serious legislators, serious elected officials who are focused on bringing people together to deliver real results for the American people, not to play games and not to engage in schoolyard taunts.
Now, I think it's a good message overall to say, hey, they need to be focused on serious things, blah, blah, blah. I don't think you're the best messenger when you're a mentally ill dude wearing women's clothes saying, gosh, they're so weird. I don't think you're the standout voice for this, bruh. But I think other than that, he's playing it at times smart, but he's just you're insincere though when you do the clapbacks of like calling him madam. So you are also an instigator. But again, Self was being honest and going by, one, because he's a man, and two, there's a precedent that has been set about how people are going to address him. And so he decided to respond by misgendering Self. And I don't know why I did this. He actually did misgender him. So maybe because just the phrasing is stupid, but misgendering, but he did misgender him. Okay. So he's the bad guy. He's violated his own ethic to be petty. So the Democrats can keep saying that Republicans are obsessed with culture war issues. One, it's like an 80-20 issue, so it's an easy win. So why wouldn't they be? But they are obsessed with the culture war stuff because the Democrats were doing cultural warfare. They've been engaged in cultural warfare for a very long time to change the culture. And they use the changing of the culture to change policy. To change our policy. Title IX and all that stuff. They do it to wield political power. It's not in a vacuum. Culture war stuff is not in a vacuum. Because you can start off small, and the next thing you know, you're suing a baker from Colorado multiple times because he won't capitulate to your whims. So we can't just ignore it. We can't just ignore it. Do you know want to know one of the reasons why the Guttmacher Institute doesn't recommend teaching abstinence in schools? It's not because it doesn't work. It can work, but schools aren't great at replicating continuously good results anyway. They're not the best in the sexual education realm, period. But you want to know why Guttmacher doesn't want folks to do it, to encourage like abstinence? Because it might make the queer kids feel bad. Seriously, because it's really about normalizing sex. That's why they keep trying to introduce it and talk about it in schools, because they're not trying to really discourage kids so much, but they're just trying to normalize it for folks. So it alters our world. It changes our world. BLM stuff that was mostly benefiting, or the organization had a focus, laser focus on queer activities. Not even like the police brutality stuff. So much of their like money that they passed on to like other organizations or whatever was focused on drag shows, gender ideology, homosexuality, all that stuff. Like we're focused. You're too focused on culture wars. Why do you want graphic sexual books in my kid's school? Why do you think it's age appropriate to have a book? This book is gay. It have a little section in the back about how gay kids could go talk to other gay people on apps. That'll probably be adults. Like, why do you think that's appropriate? Why and if we notice, we're obsessed with the culture war stuff. When you have teachers using different videos from TikTok about kids with chest binders, girls who are putting stuff over their chest to make it as flat as possible so they can have a kind of a male figure, that ends up in different lesson plans in schools or whatever, and teaching organizations. We're just not supposed to know. We're not supposed to talk about it. It's just silly culture war stuff. We're responding to you. We were fine with the culture before. We were fine. I was fine post 2008. We were fine. You pushed it. You changed things. And now we have jumped so far to this madness. And we're trying to make sure the pendulum swing keeps the other way. And we're weird. We're the ones who are weird. You are a dude pretending to be a woman, and we're the ones who are weird. That is not how it works. Teachers having secret agendas and transition plans for kids that they don't want to tell the parents. Oh, but people like Ron DeSantis, he's weird for having to make the parental rights and education bill. That's weird. Not the teachers who want to make plans for which cabin your kid gets to sleep into because they identify as a boy or girl, whatever. That's not weird. Just noticing and trying to do something about it is weird. Teachers who have secret clubs after schools, queer clubs, and try to like teach other teachers how they can have these queer clubs in red conservative areas. That's not weird. Just noticing and wanting to put a stop to it is weird. Abigail Schreier reporting on the transgender phenomenon is weird. Not that it's actually happening. Women chopping off their breasts, dudes chopping off their balls. That's not weird. Alyssa Slotkin reading I Am Jazz to promote trans kids. That's not weird. A couple years ago, I think it was 2 years ago. I think it's Will Kane is his name, a guy on Fox. He still has a job at Fox. He did a segment on this kid this dude who transitioned. Actually, no, I think it was a girl who transitioned. But it was a trans kid's family. It was all a wholesome piece. I think that's weird. I think that's weird. And Daily Wire folks were like mad, like, we're gonna get this guy fired. He still got his job. He still got his job. If I ever go on Fox and meet Will Kane, we're gonna talk about it. I don't know if we're trying to pretend like it didn't happen. I remember. We are not weird for noticing what you guys have been pushing. So I was fine with the culture before. We were fine with it before. So you guys are the ones who waged war. Anyway, Sarah had Mr. McBride had also tweeted out, no matter how I'm treated by some colleagues, nothing diminishes my awe and gratitude at getting to represent Delaware in Congress. It is truly the honor and privilege of a lifetime. I simply want to serve and try to make this world a better place. And Megyn Kelly said, you haven't been treated poorly. You've been called Mr., which is accurate, and told to use the men's room because you are a man. We need not participate in your delusion. Standing up for truth is honorable. And that's what your GOP colleagues are doing. And Megyn is correct there. Now people are mad at Megyn for saying that. And, Megyn used to feel differently too, but people push too far. And so a lot of people are like, you know what? We can't entertain this stuff anymore. So, there was a tweet. I'm sure I showed this tweet the other day, but Tomi Lauren said, look, I don't want biological man and woman sports, but I don't think it's appropriate to purposely be mean to someone and misgender them just for the sake of it. And Ali Sucky said, Tomi, no one has no moral foundation for her views, which is why she gets major issues like abortion and gender wrong. It is never mean to call a man sir. It is never wrong to refer to someone as a gender God made them. And I agreed with Allie, and I had responded to Tommy, and Guy Benson had responded because Inez Stepman had also responded to Allie's post and said, the truth isn't mean. Yeah, I also wouldn't follow someone around screaming it, but all demands to participate in a lie may fairly be met with. And did like a middle finger there. And so Guy Benson wrote a long post. I don't want to read it all, but I think it was point number. He said, like, I can't easily relate to it because I've never had that kind of issue, but you can have empathy for them. And he gets to point number 3. I think 3 is the one I objected to. Trans people exist, and I generally think we should be kind to them like everybody else, and within reason, use the names and identifiers they prefer. I say within reason because so much of the activist agenda on the trans stuff has been insane and unreasonable, seemingly intentionally so sometimes, and frankly off-putting. In general, if someone I know wants to be called by a certain name, I'll do my best to respect that. I don't think we need to aggressively refer to people by names or pronouns or whatever that they don't wish to be called. I can kind of get with you on the name. People change their names all the time, go by different nicknames, but and a lot of people you don't even maybe know their names and their dead names anyway. But at the same time, I'm like, there's a principle issue too. But people can change your names, but the pronoun thing, I'm hard no on. I'm hard no on, and I've been a hard no on. I think more people are coming around to that hard no than before, but I've always been a hard no on the pronoun thing. Always been a hard no. And the reason why I'm a hard no is because it's contrary to reality. And I don't like the idea that honesty is somehow villainy. I don't like that. The Representative Keating, who was like, I thought you were decent. I thought it's not indecent to be honest. And so people trying to teach you and make you believe that the only decent thing to do is to be dishonest, that's immoral. That's immoral. And I want to show this clip that Tomi had posted and just respond to that real quick. But I don't think people have to gatekeep conservatism though, because there's a lot of people who identify that way, but like you could be fiscally conservative or socially conservative, and a lot of these folks certainly aren't going to be meeting the fiscal conservative part today. So you got to meet the markers on socially conservative, and there's some easy parameters that you got to hit to be considered that. And if you're not conservative, you're not conservative, and it is what it is. Like Kim Klacik was like, I'm a Republican, I'm not a conservative. So when I'm in the club, mind your business or something like that. I'm like, well, I think you're a little too old to be playing the games in the club, but and you got kids, ma'am, but I accept that you are not a conservative. But here's Tomi here.
There is a representative who is transgender. Sarah McBride was purposely referred to as Mr., and it's getting a lot of traction. I feel like it's mean-spirited to do it just to be mean. Now, that doesn't mean that I want transgender people in women's sports or women's spaces, because that has an actual physical, tangible impact.
Like I'm still learning the characters in politics right now. I'm like, oh, it does look like a girl. So, obviously there's been a transition made. It's a lot different than when someone's at a cafe and it's a guy with a beard and a mustache and clearly a man, but then has a skirt on and lipstick, and you're like, want to be called a girl. It's like, that is very difficult to understand. And this is reaching, this is attention, this is reaching, this isn't fair. But I think it's inappropriate. I think, look, this is clearly looks like a woman. And it was done twice.
Okay. I don't know who the girl is at the bottom of this clip, but I thought what she said was really stupid. And I know people don't think about it this way, so let me make my case. She's saying that it's different with Mr. McBride, Congressman McBride, because he's done things, and maybe if you don't know, maybe he would go ahead and pass as a woman. Okay. Versus someone in a cafe who clearly looks like a man, but still wants to be referred to as a woman and present as a woman, even though he's definitely missing some markers, right? But they're in the skirt, they got lipstick on, so they're trying. They're just not totally conforming to I don't know, the gender spectrum or whatever the crap they say. So the social norms and whatnot. Okay, but the intention of the man, or it's assumed what the intention is of the man who has the beard but has the makeup on and the skirt, that he wants to be, I don't know, non-binary woman or whatever. And do you think it's too much because he doesn't visually look like a woman to refer to him in that kind of way? Okay, I get that. He doesn't come off as a convincing woman to you, therefore you don't want to refer to him as a woman. Okay. And you're saying, well, you might not know with Mr. McBride. Okay. So going out of your way to call him Mr. McBride is what wrong in your view? Okay, but you know he's a man though. It would be different if like if you just thought he was a woman and you referred to him with female pronouns, then you'd just be calling him a woman and you'd just be mistaken. But if you know he's a man, like you know the guy in the cafe with the lipstick and the skirt on is a man, and you also know at this point that McBride is a man. They're both men. So why would you treat them differently when you know you have the knowledge that they're both men? You know it. Just because he passes more, he put in some more work for the feminization. What their ideology is that it's a mindset that anyone is a woman if they feel like a woman. So if you're going to play along with McBride, how dare you not play along with the dude in the lipstick and the skirt with the beard? Because they're both dudes pretending to be a woman. And you both know that they're dudes pretending to be a woman. You know that. So if you wait really late to transition, and you have a bulkier frame or whatever, it's going to be hard for you to ever pass, quote unquote. But if the rule is, if you establish the rule that you can get away with it as long as you look like a woman, all you do is encourage people to do it as fast as they can, as young as they can, so they don't hit all their like male markers, and they can form their body, you know, as it's undeveloped to hit more feminine sort of features. Excuse me. So you're encouraging a lot of bad behavior by entertaining this. You're encouraging a lot of bad behavior. But they both clearly want to be identified as a woman. Or maybe the beard dude wants to be a Caesar or something. Or they, them. But not, you maybe, but probably not a he, him. So if you can lie about one, and you have the knowledge he's a man, and you want to go ahead and call him a woman, well, I think you should be able to do both. Because you have the knowledge that they're both playing pretend. So I think that's ridiculous. And she's like, and he said it twice. Yeah, because it was true both times. It was true both times. Now going out of your way to harass with it or whatever, like you don't have to go to McBride's house and hold up signs that say you are a man. You don't have to like stalk the office and put like signs up that say you are a man. You don't have to do stuff like that. Like I was talking about this last night. Like if we're having a conversation about taxes or something, and someone's like, yeah, but you're obese, Christina. It's like, bro, where did that come from? Like, well, it's the truth. I'm like, it ain't got nothing to do with anything that we're actually talking about. And that happens all the time with trolls. Actually, the number one thing people bring up to troll me on are my teeth and my gap or whatever. But they'll do that all the time. You know, that's the main marker. But sometimes people will bring up my weight. And one time recently, someone, I'm like, why'd you bring that up? I'm like, because it's true. It's like, no, you brought that up to try to get under my skin. Like it had nothing to do with the conversation. And it's like, and it is what it is. Like, you're not going to make me upset. Like I consumed the calories and didn't burn them off. Like it's all on me. You're not going to make me feel bad about the things that I, did or whatever. And I had the power to do this to myself, and I have the power to undo it. So it's like, I'm not going to give you any power in the equation. But I know why people bring it up and use it or whatever. So you could say a true thing to put someone down. But if I was going around saying I'm a size 6, a size 8, or even a 14. Like, all those things aren't true. Definitely not true. And if I was going around saying I'm not overweight, I'm not obese, and I don't like you, if I was like that rapper going around saying don't say the F word, talking about fat, and I can, she going around saying she can get into them little cars, and there are people who go on the airplanes and are exploding over different seats, and are just like, people want the world to fit around them when they can't fit well within the world. And it's not like I'm going around preaching some kind of delusion about my size. And if I were, and people wanted to clap back and be like, Christina, no, you are big. You are big and you need to calm down. Like, you are living a delusional land. That would be the time to kind of push back against that. But they're having a conversation about how you're going to address someone. And usually, like, I know sometimes in Congress, they address each other by the gentleman from, Massachusetts or something like that. And in this case, like, I always thought like the bathroom thing was one thing, but I'm like, they need to call him the gentleman from Delaware, because he is the gentleman from Delaware. And some people might feel like that's mean, but like, no, that is how you would address him. That's the proper address for him. And so I had made a post about this the other night, and someone in my comments said, well, I'm a conservative, but I don't see why we can't just say congressperson, and to, as some kind of compromise. And so I thought a while about how I wanted to respond to it, because this is a follower and stuff, and I didn't want to be too prickly about it. But I asked the question, I'm like, what would be the purpose of the compromise? What would be the purpose of compromising on that and curbing your language to say congressperson instead of congressman or congresswoman? What would be the purpose of that, using that I don't know, inclusive or neutral language for them that you may use for someone else, but maybe not usually? Like, what would be the purpose of that? Because I agree with Michael Knowles that I would like to see transgenderism like eradicated from society, like the gender ideology stuff feeding into it. I don't want that to be a thing, especially not as mainstream as they have been making it out for the past couple years. So if it's to curb it, to say, well, I don't acknowledge you as a woman, but I will instead not acknowledge you as a man, I don't think that's the right thing to do. I don't think that's the right thing to do. Like, I'm going to acknowledge you as who you're supposed to be. And there, a lot of people have a live and let live kind of attitude. And I'm like, that's not the conservative position. Like, I think conservatism is a lot about, it's about having a small limited government, but it's also about, I think, encouraging about it, what you ought to do, and preserving certain traditional cultural things. And I think that people ought to accept that there's nothing wrong with their body, that they don't have to alter it and live contrary to their nature. And that a man shouldn't want to seek out to live their life as a woman, and a woman shouldn't want to go out and seek out to live their life as a man, especially altering their body to do so. In Frankensteining people's bodies. I don't want to participate in the cultural encouragement of it, or pacifying it either. Like, I don't have a neutral position on it. I don't. And I don't want and really that's the goal too. Like, people want to like push people into accepting it, embracing it, and celebrating it stuff too. But if you listen to like aggressive trans men going after TERFs, like that, there was Hershey's, they had some kind of ambassador who was a trans woman some time ago, a couple of years ago. I wrote an article about it. I can't remember his name, but he had a quote somewhere about like bullying the TERFs into silence. And so them coming after Self and saying like, oh, well, you're not decent, and shaming him. They're trying to shame him into silence, to shame him out of something that's honest and true. It's like, well, we could just compromise and not refer to him as a guy and you can just say person or whatever. Okay, well, you're silencing him to just kind of seed the ground. And I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And I don't think that's decency. So I think the decent thing would be to be honest. And I think people cannot like honesty, but there's a way to be honest and still be respectful. Like there like someone had made a comment again about my weight and stuff, and I was like, okay, it was an Andrew Tate guy. Like they have brought it up out of, just trying to defend him, I guess. And and they're like, oh, you're big and stuff. I'm like, why? I did lose X amount of pounds. I'm working on it. And they kept bringing it up. I'm like, okay, you're obviously not concerned about my health or anything like that. You're not saying this for any kind of constructive, like there's no pathway of you trying to help me toward this journey. It's just you're trying to use it against me. Like I think the positive outcome that I would like the world to go to is people not accepting social transitioning. I don't think we should. So when people ask me to compromise, I don't want to. And I don't think we should. I don't think it's good to do it with this issue because we're denying objective truth. And I just don't think that's good for our society. And I don't think it's moral. I literally think it's sin, actually. So people could agree and disagree. But if it's so offensive for a man to call another man Mr. and he, knowing that the dude called him Madam, but he's the bad guy. That's just not how I think the world ought to work. So this other girl, she with her comments, my sister had said, so what the second woman is saying, if a guy is pretty enough, he can be called a woman. Feminine men are not women. That is true. That is true. That is true. So we're just gonna have to I don't even like saying agree to disagree. Like I would like to persuade Tomi, but as Allie said, she doesn't have like a moral foundation really for some of her positions. And people were really surprised years ago when Tomi came out and said that she was pro-choice and she was working for the Blaze and she got fired and it was like a big deal. But I'm like, why would you think that you could be pro-abortion and working for a conservative network? Like, why did you think that was gonna be a thing? And so people were like, look at this conservatism and this doctrine and it's failure in the retweeting Tomi. I'm like, Tomi is not a conservative. If you can't stand up for like basic truths and stuff, like, and I said this yesterday, and I'll say this, and I think this will be the last thing that I say, but when William Leah Thomas was read a letter from different females in you competing in swimming, said, we support what you're doing. We support you on your journey to be a woman. We just don't think it's fair that you're competing. Like, well, what do you think about that? And he said, well, how can you say that you don't support me? How can you say that you support me, but you don't want me to play? And so, sports isn't the most important thing in the world. I mean, there's a lot of good values you learn in sport. They open up a lot of opportunities, especially when people use them for different scholarships. Obviously, it's a career for a lot of different people. So it could be very important to folks. But if you think someone can socially transition and you can refer to them in the way that they want to be, I don't think you're that far removed from why shouldn't they be allowed to play in sports. Now you it's obviously unfair, and Tommy said that there's real world effects, like, but you don't think there's real world effects of shaming people and saying you're not decent if you don't refer to them in the way they want to be referred to? Because then you're talking about shaming people, and then it's not too far from people trying to police your speech, and then you have issues with the First Amendment. Like, you're you're not, it's not that far removed or whatever. Like, you get to a really bad place. So there's real world consequences for this stuff too. So I think Tommy needs to reevaluate. But my wish for this congressman would be for him to accept himself in the way that God made him, and to detransition and to live his life as a man, and be reconciled to Christ. That's what I would want for him. But no, I'm not gonna pretend I'm not gonna pretend that he's a woman just because that even if he genuinely believes it. Just like if I was having a conversation with a Muslim, I'm not going to pretend that I believe that they are correct. We can be cordial and have a conversation, but I'm never going to have any kind of conversation that downplays the reality of Jesus being God when I'm having a conversation with them, just because they believe he's just a prophet. And we could debate, and we could talk about stuff. We could have, calm conversations. Maybe there might be times when they're not calm, like Nabil and David Wood. There were times when, they're best friends, but there were times when they got heated and stuff, but I'm not going to pretend that something isn't true or water it down just because you believe something that's contrary. So it's just how it is. How it is. And you know what? A lot of people won't accept that, but from my experience, a lot of people will respect your principled position. A lot of people will respect your principled position. I have mutuals on TikTok and stuff who are trans who really like my content. and they don't, and they think there's other people on the right who are cuckoo kind of crazy and extreme, but they never thought that way about me, because I guess how I came off, or how I conduct myself and whatever. But I'm pretty hard right. But if you're firm and concise and logical and stand on business, people can come to respect what you're saying. There's people who are always going to be rejected because their feelings are just going to be prominent, and what they want to uplift, maybe someone else can reach them, but you don't lessen your shine. You don't do that. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Please go to blackteeners.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website, because it does cost to stream and run my site, all the good stuff. So if you guys can support, I do appreciate you guys. I asked that you guys check out some stuff at my store, like different t-shirts and hoodies and whatnot. And that does also help. But you guys can also check out some of my books that I have. There's a link in the description. It'll take you to an Amazon page with all my books that are out now listed. I have 18 altogether. I got children's chapter books. I got some, young adult stuff. And I have nonfiction. Like, of course, God is blatant against abortion. If Tina's still in the comments, Tina is the one who did the art for the cover here. She streams on YouTube and Twitch if you watch on Twitch. I have no one on. I don't think I have any eyes on here on Twitch. I barely have anyone on Twitch, whoever pops in. But she streams on Twitch and YouTube on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So you guys can go ahead and check out Tina's stuff. I know some of you have, and I thank you. God bless you guys, and I will see you